mean, this is one giant popularity contest is what this feels like, actually. It's not what I expected. I think that policies have less to do with it than I expected coming into this.
So what do you think is the most important factor?
I'm not sure. I'm figuring it out right now. But policy,
to be beholden
for
to
me,
super
policy is
PACs,
very
probably.
important. I mean, I think that money's the most important factor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, money is
to be a megaphone for super
tactically
PACs.
it's not what I think should be the most important factor. There's two different questions. What I think should be the most important factor versus what is the most important factor. And I think that there's a big gulf between the two. And the reality is, I'd rather kind of do it like I did with Woke Inc., to make a bet on the universe and on the country and on our process to say, I'm going to speak my convictions, and maybe people will hear them and maybe they won't. And if everything works the way it's supposed to work, then that means that if that's what the people of this country want, I'll be the next president. I feel good approaching it that way, and that I can put my head on my pillow at night regardless of the outcome. There's a version of the world where that just doesn't work. And what you need to do is you need to check certain boxes, particularly those that allow you to accumulate large-scale donors, really, to buy the ads needed to reach people, et cetera.
So do you think this is really an advertising thing? It's like, how many people can you get in front of? How much do you think it would cost?
I think spending, the person who wins this election this year all the way through is probably going to spend about $2 billion.
$2 billion?
Yeah.
So is that how much you think it would cost to be able to get elected president?
Well, I think that you can't get elected if you don't have a message that the people of this country don't
Correct.
want. But the distortions created by the amount of money that's spent via the super PACs completely distorts the system. So it's less that amount of money will win you the election, but the fact that that much money is being spent creating distortion and noise makes it much more difficult for a guy who's coming in from the outside and actually just expressing
Where do they
his own
spend
views
the
to be
money?
able to do
Where
it.
does $2 billion go?
Ads.
Where?
TV, radio, mail,
Billboards,
direct
probably.
mail,
But
billboards.
are those the people who show up to vote?
Yes, in primaries, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, the Republican primary electorate, a lot of them, they're not the world that we're talking to right now. It's people who watch old school cable television. That's where they get their news, and old school radio, like AM, FM radio.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality for the Republican primary
When do you
electorate.
think that's going to change? Because eventually those people are going to
Slowly.
age out.
It's going to change, but I think the obviousness of the fact that it is going to change creates an illusion for how quick that's going to happen. I think it's like a 10 to 20 year time horizon.
I have a very blunt question. As somebody who is a part of that like ultra wealthy, upper echelon, like elite members of society and running for president, I am sure, as shown in your books, that you have access to and can observe the level of corruptness that exists in the United States.
Yeah.
Now, especially as you're running for president, are you surprised by it? How have you experienced corruption?
I am surprised by how broken and corrupt the political system is. And
You're surprised by it.
Yeah,
and
that
you
comes
probably
in as a
went
guy
in-
who's not naive to this, right? Who has a baseline expectation that it's a broken system. It's far more broken than you expect.
How so? Because I'm a complete outsider to this. Like, how is it surprising? I have no
I'll
idea.
tell you, it's surprising because they create the illusion that it's not. So I'll just give you some, boring facts, but it helps you piece this together. The max amount you can give to a campaign in a primary for a presidential election is $3,300. Turns out you can donate another $3,300 for the general. So add that up. The most you can contribute to a campaign is $6,600. That's a lot of money for a lot of people, but it's not enough to
sway
buy
it.
off
Yeah.
a presidential candidate. It's just not, because it's going to cost $2 billion. There's a lot of people who can give $6,600. Why do we limit it at $6,600? We limit it because we don't want any one person to have undue or corrupting influence over our president. That's why we have that system. This is all a farce. That's not where the money, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but 90+% of the money that's been spent on this campaign season so far has not been spent by the campaigns of the individual candidates that are subject to these limits. It's spent by super PACs. These are these separate entities where there's no limit to how much money people can put in. They can put in $1 million. They can put in 10 million. They can put in 100 million. And you have people putting in tens, soon to be hundreds of millions as individuals.
Why do they do that?
To get influence. So the very thing that we were supposed to stop with the campaign thing, now the candidates, what they do is they show up at events hosted by the super PAC, where there are mega donors in that room, 10, 20 people giving millions of dollars apiece. That's who the candidate knows is actually funding their campaign. I mean, if you look at other candidates in this race, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, whatever, these are people where the dollars are really being spent by their super PACs. The candidates know who the super PACs are. And I'm not saying these candidates are good people or bad people. It's a broken system. Many of them are good people tainted by this broken system.
On it, right?
They're playing the game as it's currently played. And so what happens is they dance to the tune of those donors. The things they say on TV or on the debate stage or whatever, that's not them speaking. That's some mega donor speaking using their vocal cords as a vehicle, as a vessel to communicate.
How much do you think it would cost to be able to do that? Like, what's the minimum? Like, is it 10 million, 50 million?
No, it's more. I mean, you're saying
like if
to have your own money.
Correct.
influence
Like if I were to influence a policy,
if you're going to influence a policy.
Let's just say, whoever's running, whoever's in the lead right now, $50 million.
Yeah.
Is that the amount? Is it 10? Is it 100?
I think if you're talking about contributing mid to high seven figures, you're definitely going to have influence on a politician. If you're in the 8-figure territory, you're in the really special club of people who are then the puppet masters. So the people who can write 8-figure checks, they're the puppet masters.
Are these companies or people?
People.
What is the message that they're trying to get across usually? Is it...
Depends on what their self-interest is. I mean, different people have different self-interest.
Deregulations in their industry.
Yeah, or actually even just pet policies that they consider to be their version of what makes for a better America. That's actually the thing, is it's not exactly as you'd expect in terms of it all being directly relating to like their business interests. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is, for sure. But if only it were that simple.
Have you been approached for any of these?
For super PAC stuff?
Yes, huge donations say, hey, we'll give you $100 million, but we want you to...
Well, it doesn't work. It never works that way, even for the other candidates.
Okay.
The way it works is they will say can't be super PAC coordination, right? So, but Ron DeSantis' entire campaign is literally being run by the super PAC. So that's not his fault. That's not Ron DeSantis' fault. But it is a tortured interpretation of how the system was supposed to work in the first place. Why even bother with the campaign contribution limits? I mean, why? If the candidate's the bulk of his campaign can be run by a super PAC, like most of the staff is hired by the super PAC, the ads are all being bought by the super PAC, and you know who the super PAC donors are, and you show up at their events to raise the money, why bother with the farce? So the beauty of our system is supposed to be that every citizen's voice and vote counts equally, regardless of the number of green pieces of paper they control, and that culminates in the ballot box. That's a farce. That's just not the system we have in the United States of America. And the worst part of it is we create this myth that that's how it works, when in fact that's not how it works. And so every politician dances to the tune of their biggest donor. It's like as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, it's like a law of nature. Every politician dances to the tune, like a circus monkey, to their biggest donor.